Ohio is one of the states that has been hit hardest in the opioid epidemic up until this point, and in an attempt to fight back, we now have a major legal challenge. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine filed a lawsuit Wednesday against at least 5 pharmaceutical companies considered central to the nation's opioid epidemic. Its inclusion of 5 large drug manufacturers makes it one of the most sweeping lawsuit challenges so far in this area, and Ohio is the first state in the US to file such a suit. Now, some of those companies include Johnson & Johnson, its subsidiary Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Purdue Pharma, and Cephalon Inc. Now, these are some of the corporations, of course, that produce the opioids that have become so rife in states across the country, but in particular in Ohio. And I want to talk about some of the numbers to give you an idea of the severity, the extent of the problem in that state. According to the CDC, 3,300 Ohioans died due to overdose in 2015 alone, an increase of over 20% in 1 year.
But now I'm sorry, John. I'm just going to give a little bit of context. So to be fair, yes, 3,310 people died that year from a prescription overdose from just opioids. But how many people died of marijuana in Ohio that year?
Let's bring up the graphic.
Thousands more.
Oh right, 0. Just sorry, carry on.
Probably, yeah.
It was one of the other.
And a very popular drug, by the way. It's been experimented on a lot. But I want to give you some more numbers, some more scary numbers. Back in 2012, more than 790 million doses of opioids were prescribed to patients in Ohio, enough to supply every man, woman, and child in the state with 68 pills each.
Amazing!
I know. Some of these numbers I came across.
Because I don't think that's how they distributed them.
Yeah, you don't get in line to get your
faster. Okay, yeah, you have to register at the DMV and then they send you your pills, 68 each. And then in 2016, 2.3 million people in Ohio were prescribed an opioid. That's 20% of the state's entire population. Well, these are incredibly powerful drugs that have somehow, even as year after year, the problem has become worse and more people have died unnecessarily and addiction rates are skyrocketing, still have this aura that it's a painkiller. I've taken painkillers before, and it's the doctors with the profit motive being given money by the pharmaceutical companies to push these drugs that are producing those sorts of misconceptions, and they're deadly misconceptions.
Okay, more amazing things about this story. So if 20% of the population is taking the pills, and you would get 68 pills per person in the state, well, you do a little bit of math, times it by 68 by 5, and you get 340. So for everyone who is prescribed the pills, they're taking on average 340 pills.
Of course, a lot of it is being sold to people who are not prescribed the drugs.
Yeah, so we're hooked on this stuff, literally. You know, the gateway drug they warned us about, they said it was marijuana, but it isn't. This is literally the gateway drug because first of all, it can kill you. Second of all, if it doesn't, it leads you to seek out things that are cheaper but give you the same effect, which is heroin.
Right.
And then heroin then oftentimes kills you, let alone all the people who survive, but whose lives are absolutely ruined. But all of this
really fast before you move on from that, and so I mean those numbers are not included in this. Like the people who start on opioids and eventually end up on illegal drugs and die as a result of that, that's its own epidemic that people don't realize is inherently connected to this one.
And all of those amazing numbers pales in comparison to the more amazing part of the story, that it is Republicans in Ohio that are suing giant pharmaceutical companies, including Johnson & Johnson, and holding them accountable. I literally cannot remember the last time that happened. Yeah, so that's amazing. Yeah, and by the way, congratulations to them, Mike DeWine and John Kasich in Ohio, who's the governor there.
Yeah, and Mary Taylor is the lieutenant governor of Ohio, and she's going to run for governor coming up. And she very publicly came out. She has 2 sons, 26 and 23, both of them addicted, and she says it's been a horror and a nightmare. And she says they're both doing better. We are not out of the woods. One is still in treatment, one is out of treatment, but it's a daily struggle and it's better right now, but it's just awful and no family should have to go through it.
Well, and that's the other thing too. There's people who just have an addictive personality. It's in their genes, it's an allergy, there's nothing they can do about it. But it seems like from family and friends that I know that this doesn't discriminate. This doesn't care if you have an addictive issue or not. you'll get addicted, because if you're in pain, 1 pill's not going to be enough eventually. 4 pills isn't enough eventually. 8 pills isn't enough eventually. That can happen to any of us.
So yeah, and there have been other lawsuits, but Ohio is the first state to file a lawsuit like this. Again, further congratulations to them for being this bold and right. And so what are they suing about? They're saying, well, look, there's deceptive marketing practices here, because they're not saying anymore that you should just take it as a temporary solution to pain. They're saying you should take it all the time for chronic pain. But that is horribly misleading, because if you do, you will almost certainly get addicted.
And can I pile on to that and say, the craziest thing on the planet is that now we're normalizing the fact that you can't go to the bathroom because you're hooked on. There are so many commercials for opioid addictive constipation medicine.
That's right.
That's a real thing. I thought it was from The Onion the first time I saw that ad. It's real. Hey, take too many pills and can't poop. We got you. Don't worry about it.
Some more pills.
It's insane.
Yeah. And so the real dangerous drug dealers in America, and this is not an exaggeration at this point at all, are the pharmaceutical companies. But I want you to have context. That doesn't mean that they only do bad things. They also create drugs that save lives. So just the world is not just black and white and just evildoers and good folks and stuff. So what we're trying to do, and apparently what the state of Ohio is trying to do, is keep making the drugs that save lives. And by the way, and have painkillers for when people need painkillers, but do not market it as something that treats a chronic condition, because it will get people hooked and people will die.
And as you know, led by, I think, Obama first, and then certainly Hillary Clinton embraced it, and Bernie Sanders was certainly in favor of it too. Opioid addiction became a sort of surprising issue in the 2016 campaign and got talked about a lot. Donald Trump looking to slash the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy by 95%. And the reaction to that among many Republicans, including some voters who I read, were like, hey, I thought you talked about it, maybe it was John, but there was a reaction of, hey, I thought like the deal was you were concerned that, especially in places like West Virginia and Ohio, where the epidemic is so widespread, that people were like, no, we needed help on this. This needs to be an issue that is exactly addressed by a White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. That's exactly what they should be doing. And the Trump administration is having a 95% cut is the proposal in that office.
And it's another area where John Kasich actually was very outspoken about.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He was outspoken about it too. You're right.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking about treating chronic pain, like imagine if we had a drug that helps with chronic pain that doesn't lead to overdose deaths, and for some reason is still in the vast majority of our country illegal. You can go to jail theoretically for it. It's stigmatized. God help us if kids might be exposed to it, and of course that's weed. And it's weird that the way that we talk about these different drugs is so stupid. And at one point it just shocked me that people would argue so fervently against weed and then go home and get drunk off a bottle of wine or whiskey or something like that. And I get it, that's ingrained in our society, okay. People can't see how ridiculous that is. But that they don't see the comparison between weed and this, that some people literally think that they're on the same tier. People like our Attorney General think that these are comparable substances, comparably dangerous.
No, this is legal and marijuana isn't. It's unreal. It's so anti-scientific, it's insane. And yet even Democrats are not yet willing to consider legalizing marijuana.
It's still, there's I was trying to avoid saying it, but there's a racial component to it. And Jeff Sessions is an old school racist, and he still thinks that it's the hopheads and coloreds who are doing the marijuana drugs, and that's obviously I'm using the kind of speech that people like Jeff Sessions would use. Hopheads.
I don't even know what it is.
I think that would come
I'm gonna have to Google it.
And so
put my safe search on.
And the sense is that these drugs, this is white people drugs. This is medicine prescribed in an official way. What is going to change marijuana policy in this country is when guys like Jeff Sessions come to understand that white people, men and women, like I'm just saying, might enjoy marijuana also and might benefit from marijuana. To John's point, that there are actual legitimate medicinal qualities, and we're not talking about people suffering with serious illnesses, and I don't want to disregard that. That's important. It helps there. But as you said, chronic pain, like a way to alleviate chronic pain or chronic anxiety.
Well, I guess my question, and maybe it's coming from a naive place, but I don't think so, is Do we really believe that these people truly don't understand this, or do you just follow the money, and once Big Pharma gets to market it and prescribe it and sell it, then it's going to be a whole different story?
No, so of course you're right about that, Gina. And we know that Nixon originally did the war on drugs, according to one of his aides, to almost literally what Ben said, because they said they wanted to target their political enemies, which were black people and hippie liberals. And they perceived them as the ones who took drugs, etc. Now it has morphed into, well, if marijuana addresses chronic pain and the drug that I charge a lot of money for and is a multi-billion-dollar industry also can address chronic pain, well, I don't want you to legalize marijuana. And states that have legalized this, so there's the pharmaceutical angle to it. And they are, by the way, the #1 political donors in the country. More than oil companies, more than banks. Drug companies are #1 in political corruption that where they purchase politicians. And so, and it's also the alcohol companies. The alcohol companies are now fighting ballot measures to legalize marijuana all over the country, because in states that legalize marijuana, alcohol sales go way down.
Of course.
Because it's much cheaper and you still get buzz. So anyway, finally.
Lower carb.
Oh my God, right?
Oh, good point. Until, of course, you get the munchies.
Or you get the edible stuff.
Right.
They come in Rice Krispie, you know.
So finally, back to the political reasons behind this. I'll give you the cynical version, but it doesn't take away any credit. So yes, I think Ben is right. It's starting to affect white people. In this case, literally, so there's a politician in this story that that we explained, whose family members were affected, and they're like, whoa, wait. That's me. That's not the other people that I thought were bad guys.
Right.
So that's affecting me. So we're going to do something about this. And then secondarily, John Kasich is going to run against Donald Trump in the primaries if Donald Trump's still around. And he has opposed Trump on almost everything. He was among the top 3 finishers when Trump won last time around. And he is positioning himself as a moderate Republican. If you're going to do that, this is a wonderfully bold and smart strategy to do that.
Again, both sides will love.
That's right. So there is politics behind this, but I'll take it, right? If your politics as a Republican is to do the smart and reasonable thing because you think it'll help you with the voters, deal.
You just watched the video from the Young Turks. Did you know that there's a live 2-hour show every day, and that if you're a member of the Young Turks, you can get that on demand anytime you want without ads? Plus the post game just for members, plus Aggressive Progressives, plus Old School, plus so many other network shows. Go right now, tytnetwork.com/join.